afternoon, all you awesome people out there. My name is Scott Schertzen, alongside Mr. Obie Spencer, Mr. J.D. Walker, and down there in Ranger attire, Ranger proud, Mr. Brandon Kaye. Hope you're doing well. Thank you, Obie. Hope, good to hear from you. I miss you, man. This is, by the way, the Sports Den on Spangler's World Network, Zingo TV, channel 250 and 249. Kindly remember to download the Zingo TV app on the app stores of iOS and Android. When you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. Lastly, Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Gentlemen, how the hell are you?
Doing well. Doing well.
Good.
I'm doing good today.
Good. So we got a ton of stuff that we're going to be talking about right now. We're going to be going into a bunch of stuff. But first and foremost, basically, Obie, I'm going to be turning this over to you, sir, because some things are breaking down in the world of Mercedes and in the world of Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, and some chaos that's happening in the Mercedes front. So if you want, feel free, roll with that, talk about that, give me your thoughts.
So my thoughts are it's something to talk about. It's nothing that's real. So they got the third fastest car on the track for sure. Red Bull and Ferrari are 1-2 with it looking like Red Bull is the better strategic team. They're used to being.
All right, I guess Obie is still with us.
So, little technical issue there, but we'll make this work. By the way, just want to point out, hello, Uniquely Stuff. How are you doing? I don't know why I'm talking like this, but why not? So, all right. So anyway, we're going to basically talk a little bit right now about what's going on in this case, because basically we got a little bit of an issue going on when it comes to Mercedes and everything that's happening inside of the thing. So, back, sir. All right. So,
now,
all right. So basically, we're just going to roll with this right now. Yeah. So, by the way, I just want to point out that image right there is brought to you by Formula One and Getty Images. So those fine, far better looking people than myself, Mr. George Russell and Mr. Lewis Hamilton. So.
It looks like they're about to drop the hottest album though of 2022.
Dude, really?
Right?
That's a cold picture right there.
Dude, it's a freaking awesome.
You can easily Photoshop in the explosion behind them that they're walking away from.
Oh yeah.
You know what? Maybe I should.
This picture has Photoshop potential, and unlimited potential.
Can we green screen this? Because I'm sure we could have.
We'll work on this.
We can have a lot of fun with that.
We'll work on this.
I'll do the image like that. You can put it's so easy to do that because right now what you would do is it's all white in the background. So you do what they call a color select or fuzzy select. And it would just grab all the white in the background and just change how you want.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that'd be great. So, but and it's a little chaotic on that side of the fence right now with everything that's going
Drift
on.
punk right here.
What's that?
That's it. That's the best I got.
That's That's not bad. So anyway, right now with everything that's happening with this team, Mercedes is struggling right now. George Russell is 4th and Lewis Hamilton is currently 6th. And this is a far cry from what Mercedes was expecting out of him, but also additionally, it's a far cry from what they were expecting out of Mercedes. With Azerbaijan coming up this weekend, they have already been told outright that there are some technical issues going on, and this is something that they may not be able to do that well with. And Mercedes is going to fall further down the track. Lewis Hamilton, who arguably is the face of Formula One, will probably drop further down as Verstappen and the rest of them start to continue to climb. Give me some thoughts here. Give me some, beliefs of what you think. Can they turn this around?
Verstappen and Red Bull are just dominating so much that, does it matter? I mean, because Hamilton and Verstappen were 1A and 1B for the last few years. Now it's just all Verstappen, with a bit of Leclerc thrown in. So Hamilton, falling to Hamilton at 6th and dropping it's not even a factor anymore. Yeah. I admit that as a cat, I'm not a huge racing fan, so I don't know that much about Mercedes issues, but for Mercedes to be calling this car is a bit of a shock. I don't know if it's necessarily due to internal issues at Mercedes leading to an actual decline, or just Red Bull and Ferrari have been better.
There, as you can see, is what the standings are right now, courtesy of Formula One, or Sky Sports, by the way. Verstappen right now is at a modest 125. Leclerc's not that far behind. But again, when you look at Hamilton, he's only at 50 points right now. So you could pretty much chalk up 2022 to being a lost season for him now. And what does that mean for 2023? Oh, did we get you back? Yeah, please.
Yes, we did. I don't know if I got anything out before I got disconnected.
We didn't hear much, unfortunately.
Okay, so yeah, it's a feature, not a problem. The reality is that yes, Hamilton's season is done, but Mercedes as a team is not. The real issue they're having is their car's aerodynamics is not the same as what Red Bull and Ferrari is. Ferrari's car is handling turns with so much downforce. Any slow turn on the course, the Ferrari is going to win. And meanwhile, the Red Bull, it's just faster on the straights than everybody else. And again, it's not porpoising. So porpoising is literally the car is bouncing. It doesn't hit a bump. It just bounces because of the not having enough downforce or downforce in the wrong part. So a few races ago, they changed the front end of the car. And it's the craziest things, in racing. If you look at the F1 cars, they have fins on the side of the front. What they did is they cut out a whole bunch of space on the fins in the front of the car, and now the air comes off the fins, out the side, and the car has been much better since then. But while they were spending 3-4 races making the car not bounce, Red Bull and Ferrari were spending those races making their car faster. So it's by far, you look, right? Hamilton is 6th. You can see what cars are first and second. The fact that Norris is even that close to Hamilton is crazy, because the difference between the Mercedes and the McLaren and the Alfa Romeo is stark when you watch qualifying. The Mercedes is a much faster car. It's just not as fast as the other two. It does not have their pace, but they are trying to get there. And Hamilton feels that they're going to get there by Silverstone, which is 2 more races. You got Azerbaijan, you got Canada, and then the home race for Hamilton, where he hopes to be in position to finally get something done, which is also the home race for George Russell, who, by the way, Mercedes has had, he's the only guy that's finished in the top 5 in every race. So Mercedes has the most reliable car out there, which it goes to say something, that their car is finishing every race. Max obviously has won every race he's finished, but he hasn't finished too. So, yes, Mercedes is out of winning the individual championship. Hamilton and Russell seem to be getting along well enough that Hamilton can support Russell, and Russell has a very outside chance of winning this thing, but at least they can work together to get Mercedes still an outside shot at the Constructors' Championship.
In this case, go ahead, please.
So you say that with the you say that regarding the Mercedes having a reliable car in that they finish, but because of the issues with the downdraft on the front end, not enough to actually win, but they're finishing. And with Russell finishing in the top 5 in every race, they're reliable, just not at the top. Would you say that's, did I have that right, Obi? Or
yes, they are the 3rd fastest car on the track. All great kudos, by the way, to Valtteri Bottas, what he's doing in that Alfa Romeo. He's probably actually running faster most races than Norris. But there's a gap between Red Bull and Ferrari, Mercedes, and everybody else. It is definitely a 3-tier championship out there right now. But Mercedes seems to be able to finish all their races. So, I think what I said and what you understood, JD, I so apologize, are absolutely congruent.
My question to you in this case here is, right now, we were talking about this a little bit before the show via Facebook. Right now, Lewis Hamilton is under contract for 1 more year until 2023, because he signed a 2-year extension for an ungodly $147 million. he's talked about the possibility of retiring. I know it's insane amounts of money. That's over $1 million a week. He's talked about the possibility of retirement. I don't think necessarily he will. But in your opinion, what do you think? Do you think he rides out the contract? Do you think he tries to get a buyout? And what happens if he rides out the contract for, say, 2024?
I think he's going to finish the contract. So yesterday, day before, somebody close to Toto Wolff, for lack of a better, the manager of the team, came out and said that Toto's looking at Nick DeVries if Hamilton retires as the backup plan. And Hamilton came out and said, I'm not retiring. I have no intention of retiring. I do think, as I've said before, that he is older, more mature, and it might be in his head, but what the hell am I doing speeding around the racetrack at 180 miles to 200 miles an hour? Maybe I can do something safer. But I do think if that's happening, it's happening back here. He doesn't even realize it. So I think he's going to push through both these seasons for sure. I think at the end of 2 years, it could be it. I mean, it could be one of those situations where, like, I don't know enough. I haven't been following F1 long enough to know, although I do see that there are defending champs or former champs riding slow cars out there. But, in some sports, it's traditional just to keep going until they stop paying you. In other sports, if you're the best of the best, when you reach the point you're not, you leave. I don't know where F1 is. So I can't be sure. The thing is, nobody else can give him that kind of money but Red Bull and Ferrari, and Leclerc and Verstappen are too good. And Perez is riding so well that they're talking about maybe there's going to be some Perez-Verstappen friction because Perez was already denied a win. So Verstappen can get it. And so that's a 12-point swing. And look at that. I mean, you can just see on the board, you take 6 off of one, add 6 to the other. Yeah, it's 119, 116, 116. And Perez is right there. So I don't know if there'll be a place for Hamilton if he doesn't win the championship next year on an A-plus team as the lead driver. And I don't know if he'd want to do it if he's not. And then George Russell is fantastic. That's why he's number 4 on this list. He is fantastic right now.
Would Mercedes want to do a buyout and move on from Hamilton if Hamilton is no longer the number 1? Because you don't pay somebody $74 million a year to be their number 2 driver.
If they didn't, I don't know how long they have Russell under contract. I believe they have Russell also for 2 or 3 years. That was the whole point in signing Russell and letting go Bottas, who they were doing 1 year at a time. So I think this is really a situation where if I am Mercedes, I'm looking at next year will be Hamilton's last year. Let him go full price. So I'm not going to get a number 2 driver who's as good as Hamilton. And for all intents and purposes this year, even though Hamilton is supposed to be the team lead, he's obviously not looking at the scoreboard, and he's not behaving like, hey, I should be the leader. Give me those points over Russell. Let me pass Russell. He's not even asking for that. Russell was ahead of him one race. He didn't even, it was like, all right, let's get the 4-5 finish or whatever it was. I think it was 2 races ago. And, no questions. Not, I have more pace than him. It was, Russell's got a chance at the championship. I don't, as outside as that shot is. So if he's going to be a good soldier this season, there's no reason to think he won't be a good soldier next season. And at least he brings people buying the Mercedes merchandise at the track for sure. He's still extraordinarily popular.
Yeah. He was trending on Twitter the other day while he was just simply filling up his gas tank.
Right.
Just waving, just saying hi to random people that were just sitting there filling up their gas tank at a local, close gas station. And he was trending on Twitter just being a regular average Joe. That's what I'm saying. He's more or less the face of Formula One. And I think in a lot of ways has mainstreamed Formula One.
Yes. So between the new ownership of Formula One and Lewis Hamilton's persona, I mean, Lewis, I like Leclerc. I find Verstappen not to be. Verstappen is very much more along the Tom Brady sort of professional athlete type with minimal personality. So Hamilton has personality. Look, he's the greatest of all time, arguably, and he's fighting to wear jewelry. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, that's his art. That's what he's got. He's fighting. I want to keep my nose ring in because I need surgery to have it removed, so I'm going to wear it all season. Like, this is a dumb fight, but it's fun with him. If it was Verstappen, and although he has a large fan base, I don't think we'd have as much fun going on. And Russell, I'm looking at this list, the six guys names I see up here, and they're all. I will say this: I don't know when they start to figure it out, but all these guys, even Verstappen, who is not Mr. Personality, have personality to go along with it. So F1's doing a magnificent job, and Lando Norris, who's number 7, probably has more than anybody else. He's one of those guys. Let me tell you, he's a good-looking young man. He's a good-looking young man, smiles all the time, says all the right things. He's going to have lots of fans for sure.
Yeah, and also if we have if Russell makes a push and gets closer to the top 3, and then it becomes a 4-person race, with up top, for the championship with Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, and Russell all going forward. If Russell can close the gap a little bit, then that creates a bit more intrigue for F1 overall, as opposed to just, Verstappen and Leclerc running away with it, or Verstappen just lapping the field. Russell's still close enough to make it move. Hamilton's out of it. But if Russell gets hot, he might be able to get himself in the mix too. I don't know that much about the point system, but it seems with enough races left, it looks like he's within striking distance at least.
For sure, he is. He's swinging for the fences at this point, but absolutely, he is still conceivably in there. It's 25 points for a win, so if he finishes every race and everybody else misses one, and he gets one win in there, he's catching up real quick. Just a few spots ahead of Verstappen here, a Leclerc victory there. He's qualifying well. George Russell has been the fastest guy during practice at least one day, 4 of the 6 races so far. So Russell is definitely a threat. But that's what I got. I hear that we have some breaking news.
TD. We're breaking live. I'm sorry, Obi. We're going to come back to you in a moment with this. But we're going live right now to Mr. Brandon Kaye, who has apparently breaking news. Brandon?
So I am going to, pun intended, come out of left field with this breaking news. But Joe Madden is now out as Angels manager.
Interesting.
Is surprising and not surprising, at least in my eyes.
Yeah.
I thought he had built up enough credit to at least earn the chance to get through a real struggle with this team. But obviously not. He's out after a 12-game losing streak, the obvious coldest team in the league, which is really crazy because they have arguably the 2 best players, certainly in the American League. You could argue baseball, but I'm thinking about this whole, the Mike Trout situation and just him, it's one thing. But I think the Shohei Ohtani, I think we're going to have to come to a certain point in the future where he's going to have to make a decision, either pitching or batting.
Because I don't think that's the issue. I think depth is their issue, and the fact
it's not sustainable.
They have no other pitching aside from Ohtani. Our old friend Noah Syndergaard has
God of Thunder
0.2 ERA. This is, the Angels are such a joke of an organization. I feel bad for Madden because this isn't really his fault. The team has always been constructed badly.
Well, the problem with that is that
it was kind of a mirage for them to be as good as they were the first 6 weeks or so of the season, until this 12-game tear. Although getting swept by the Phillies, who just fired Girardi,
their own guy,
the Mets broke the Phillies a few weeks ago with that 6-run comeback, and they've been DOA ever since. For them to get hot with the dead cat bounce after firing Girardi and sweeping Trout, Trout's hometown team, by the way, from Millville is closer.
He was on the worst slump of his career, going back towards his own hometown.
Only
Tom's River is a half an hour, 40 minutes away from Philly.
He's from Millville, which is about 40 minutes away.
Okay.
Yes, rumor had it he was staying with his parents for this trip.
That's
That's
kind of
what they
sweet.
said
I
on the
read somewhere
telecast.
he still has an actively maintained bedroom at his parents' house. That's how close he is with them. So even though he's making hundreds of millions of dollars, he's still that close with them. Which
That's sort of sweet. Now in this case here, in this case, when Girardi was out, Robbie Thompson, the bench coach, took over, and he's going to be interim coach for the remainder of the season. Also, he lives right down the street from Obi's in-laws. It's pretty cool. And just knock on the door, ask for some sugar. In this case, do we know who's taking over?
They do. I don't.
Do we know who's taking over for Joe Madden?
I'm not sure what their coaching staff is like off the top of my head. Let's see.
What's interesting about this is the Mets are due to play Anaheim too, or the LA Angels.
Yeah, we on the weekend series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah,
after they hobble through this Red Sox series, the Angels.
So,
another thing, Anthony Rendon has been a disappointment since coming to the Angels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody is addressing that. They're getting so clouded by the Trout situation and the Ohtani phenomenon, which, like I've said, I don't think it's sustainable. I think he's going to have to get to a point where he picks pitching or offense, and I have a feeling it's going to be offense.
Honestly, I completely forgot that Rendon had signed out there. That's how much I remember.
Coming off, was an MVP or top 3 MVP voting, whatever it was. Incredible.
Also, the Angels and Artie Moreno, the owner, have some of the dumbest big ticket free agent signings in baseball over the past 10 years or so. It seems like everybody they sign, trying to fix things, just ends up face planting there. You see how well giving Syndergaard $22 million a year is going for them.
Even when they signed Pujols, it was like obviously a mistake. It was a man who
I'd go back to Josh Hamilton.
Yeah, Hamilton's another one. They've had a lot of free agent flameouts.
Yeah. Maybe it's something in the water in Anaheim. It'd be better if they were in LA. But
the team at one point was like 21-12, I think.
This team reminds me of the Mets team that was 17-3 a few years back, and then just if they got whatever if they got 500 for the rest of the season, they were at 100 wins. Instead, they end up under 500 for the season. This team reminds me of. They weren't supposed to be good. They were surprisingly good. Then they were what we expect them to be, and now we're getting rid of the manager because he couldn't hold on to the miracle start. That's my problem. He couldn't hold on to the start that we knew was an aberration.
Okay, I got a name for you of the replacement manager.
Thank you.
Phil Nevin.
Oh! former Yankee,
former Yankee. Speaking of disappointments, former Yankee disappointment, Phil Nevin.
Well, he was a San Diego Padre, so it's like he's only about 3 hours from where he's most known anyway. Was he a bench coach over there or something, or was he?
I'm scrolling through the page looking for it right now. He was actually a coach for the Yankees for the past few years, which because it surprised me because he was with the '98 Padres when they got killed by the Yankees, in that World Series, and then works with them, But that's interesting, but not surprising, especially with how Houston is continuing to roll. They had to do something to try and stay in this race, to try and salvage the season. It's also additionally, when you think about it, not only do you have to deal with the Houston Astros, you got to deal with the LA Dodgers. Yeah. Because when one team is doing well like that, and the other team is not, it's an embarrassment to the franchise. And with the Dodgers being the evil empire of the 2020s, but having success with it, you are required to try and step up. Nevin was the third base coach.
For the Angels?
For the Angels.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess he was fired with everybody else.
Third base coach for the Yankees for the past several years.
Yeah, I mean, there was that brief moment in time where we had, the 2 New York teams and 2 LA teams are both in first place. And, I knew that was a problem when they said it. I'm just glad it wasn't my Mets that was the one who fell on their face.
Yeah.
Still time, but
give it time. That's why I am trying to restrain. I'm restraining my excitement about the Mets until the All-Star break.
Hey,
although
give
this
him credit.
does feel different. It's a team that still, I mean, no matter how good they are, they still produce headlines like pitcher recovering from
yes, okay, we can.
pitcher
So
on the DL
yes.
gets his hand bit by his dog, sets back his recovery. Those are perfect Mets still gonna Met.
But it didn't
matter
set
how
back his recovery.
No,
In
it
previous years, it would have if this
Right.
were to happen. But this year, no, it's
It was
different.
a non-pitching hand. It wasn't a bite. It was a yip. He went on. He had to defend his dog, defend his hand, defend his recovery. But he did it. He's like, no, my dog did not bite me. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, but this is the same team. But when we've had multiple occurrences of animal-related baseball injuries with the Mets, most notably Cespedes tripping over a hog or something at his ranch a few years ago. That was one conversation. Was at least it was, at least it wasn't a pit bull. I said, hey, at least it was his dog and not the warthog or whatever.
I think it was a boar or something like that.
Yeah, or
it was a boar got like random in the ass or something. I don't know.
Let's call him Pumbaa, whatever he was.
Yeah, Pumbaa.
He tripped over Pumbaa in his yard, and then in his ranch, and then never played for the Mets again. Or no, he did play for I think 5 minutes in the 2020 season, and that was it. Before opting out for COVID, and I don't think he's
played. Yeah, he did. Yes, he was there for about a week.
Yeah,
and then was like, yeah, no, I'm out.
Speaking of, I was going to say Robbie Cano's out with San Diego too. They released him this week. But
San Diego picked him up and released him within a month.
He batted 091 for like 12 games or whatever it was.
And he didn't hustle down the line. So
yeah, it doesn't surprise me. But
the only way he's at the point in his career where the only way he can stay on the field is with PEDs.
Yeah, at 30, he's 39 now at this point. So you see, I like that. Yeah. But he's still under contract through next year with the Mets, isn't he? They still got to pay him for next year.
I'm not sure if it's next year.
We're paying Bobby Bonilla. Let me pay everybody. I don't care.
Yeah, Bobby Bonilla is like
Uncle Stevie's got this. Please. He's banking where none of these owners are banking. We got Uncle Stevie money. We don't care. We'll pay. That's fine.
And you got a guy who hit for the cycle last night in San Diego.
Yeah. Also, the Mariners are still on the hook for some of that Cano money too, because they did retain some salary in order for the Mets to even take him in the first place a few years ago.
I don't know if you guys heard about this, but basically last night around 11:45, I saw the tweet this morning from SNY. They're like, it's 11:45 at night. We have officially lost control of the booth because Keith Hernandez was talking about the Mets and how they're hitting and how they continue to quote unquote stroke out. So they're stroking out regularly. Every time they come up, they're stroking out. And Gary Cohen had to correct him and be like, do you realize what you're saying right now? Additionally, the fact that basically you and I, we're old. You can't say things like stroke to guys like us. And it was one of the funniest things where you realize these guys, it's close to midnight. They're tired. West Coast trips are tough as it is, night after night. And these guys, neither one of these guys are spring chickens. And Keith Hernandez did not even realize what he was saying when he kept talking about basically how well the Mets are stroking out.
Keith goes off the handle,
dude,
every other night.
Montages to this stuff, man.
Every other night, he's in his own world.
At least he's not tweeting about his cat. The
cat.
The cat was in 30 for 30. He was.
Yes, he was.
I think he got his own name title. He got his own name credit when they showed him. It was Keith and Cat, whatever the cat's name is.
So, since we're talking about it, what's the difference between Billy Squier and Michael Jackson, a classic joke from the 80s?
I'm not sure, and I'm afraid right now.
Yeah.
Billy Squier strokes it, and Michael Jackson beats it. Boom.
I actually remember that joke. There were some other Michael Jackson jokes that we probably can't say on air.
There's one that comes to mind about Michael Jackson that I am not repeating.
There was
this is like a double entendre that went along with our conversation. I wasn't going anywhere inappropriate.
Yeah, I want to let you know I had my finger on like the mute button for you. Just in case. But you know what? Like I said, it's all sunny in Metsville right now. But before, in this case here, Brandon, I do want to talk before, the main topic that we had. MJ and the Kmart joke is the one that I had too. I'm not saying that one on air. Nope. But Brandon, before we start talking about Colorado sports and everything like that, that's doing pretty well right now. Far better than the team I've got.
Yes, those New York Rangers, where, that game 3, I think first off with Shesterkin goaltending has still been spectacular. I think the magic number is 2, where if you could keep Tampa to 2 goals or less, you have a great chance of winning this series, 5-6 games maybe. But they really, I was surprised. I mean, they, from the beginning of this series, looked like the faster, aggressive, or more aggressive, they looked almost more experienced. There were certain times where Tampa looked so out of it, sloppy play, not crisp passes, weren't aggressive, taking shots. But then you see that, game 3 coming down to the last minute, that, the pressure and, going down 0-3, it's not a favorable position. We just saw what happened over in the West series. And then you see the experience of the Tampa Bay Lightning coming out, keeping cool within the last minute to go up. It was 3-2 to go 2-1 in this series. Series is far from over. Let's not get that confused. But I've been really, really happy with the Rangers' play through these 3 games so far.
Yeah, and
not just that, but the amount of time it took to go ahead.
I'm wondering if we're starting to see the cumulative toll of 3 straight years of 100+ games, including playoffs, taking its toll on the Lightning. But you will still have moments like that Brevard goal, which was absolutely huge. I don't think Tampa's going quietly. I think that they win again tonight to make it 2-2, going back to the Garden. This series is going 6 or 7. The Rangers have been far better than I expected. Shesterkin has been hot. As Igor goes, so goes the Rangers, especially especially when you have Vasilevsky and the Lightning experience on the other side. Which brings us to the West Finals, where goaltending and defense were optional. I said in this last week that that I didn't believe was not a believer in Darcy Kemper for the Avalanche, and I was right. So they lucked out with him getting hurt and Francouz playing better, and he played better, not only better than Kemper, but more importantly, better than Mike Smith, who has been terrible for the whole playoffs.
But that is now a rested Colorado team. And like you said, this other series may go 6 or 7. So it may have an impact. It might. But
that's going to be a sleepy Colorado team, I fear, for Colorado Avalanche fans. It's going to be a while before they get back on the ice in a meaningful game. So, I think they said the minimum is 6 days, and it could be as long as 11 days, depending upon how quickly this thing wraps up. So,
I've seen a soft date for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals already. I'm not sure if this is official or was just floated around as a teaser date of
like the 18th.
June 18th.
18th,
I think that's one of the finals. I don't know if that's going to move if this series if the Rangers and Lightning wrap up quickly, or how that would go. But if that's the case, they're looking at 12 days between games.
Yeah,
that's a lot of rust that built up.
That is a lot.
Yeah, that's almost like you wish you had lost. You wish you had gone with the gentleman's sweep at that point.
And I thought that was what
the other side of it, though.
Yeah, I thought Edmonton was going to hold on last night.
If this Ranger series goes 6, that is an improvement over the 2 7s that they just had. So, you have to wonder in a case like this, if the Tampa Bay series goes 6 or 7, whichever side it ends up being, that come games 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, that would have to be probably advantage Colorado, because sooner or later that stamina is going to, it may take a little while to get the rust off when you've had that much of rest, but it's going to pay dividends on the back end when you're more rested than the opposing team.
Yeah, and also it's just little moments that add up. Like in game 3 of the Oilers Avalanche series on Saturday night, you had a tie game. I believe it was tied 2-2 in the third period, and the Oilers get a great look at the Avalanche net, ding off the post. Oilers come right back and score and score at the other end. It was a very soft goal that Smith gave up on that play, which he made up for it by stealing another goal from McKinnon later on, but the damage was already done. So just a few inches between post and net was the difference between an Oilers 3-2 lead in the third period of game 3 and a 2-1 and possibly winning and making a 2-1 series. Instead, a few inches, you hit the post, goes down the other end, you're down 3-2. They end up losing by 4-2 with an empty net tacked on at the end, and down 3-0 and essentially done. Just a few inches between the post and between hitting the post, that changed the series right there.
So I'm going to go back to Scott's point because of rest versus rust versus series length. I do think that if it's the Lightning who get there, the exhaustion level is less of a factor than it's the Rangers, because I think for the Lightning, it's not just the series, other series length. It's that I think the Lightning are probably a better team who got off to a slow start in this series, which is all the door open that the Rangers needed.
They swept the second round, so they had the rest going into the series.
Right. Yeah, and this is what happens with you rest, right? You rest, and you're seeing it. And they did the one thing they haven't done all in 27 games or some crazy number like that. Lost 2 in a row, or I think it was 17 is the actual number. So I think the Avalanche is really hoping for the Rangers because of the exhaustion level. Yeah, we might lose game 1. But then we're going to be able to shoot our way into however many games it takes to win.
Colorado is also the highest scoring team in the league. Yeah. So
that's what I mean by shoot it out.
So they can. So with Shesterkin on his first playoff run and been outstanding so far, with the exception of some hiccups in the first round, you have Shesterkin that would be facing the highest scoring team in the league in the Avalanche if they do make it past this series, or you have Vasilevsky, and who's another Vezina finalist, who's been one of the best goalies for several years now. So either way, it's going to be interesting to see with the Lightning's cumulative toll adding up over the past few years versus the Rangers having 6 or 7 game series and getting tired this season. But they have a younger team, so they could bounce back either way.
Oh, youth.
Yeah, I think the youth on a first playoff run, I think does play to the Rangers' advantage over all 3 teams that are left. But yeah, that's going to be their biggest test. Both teams, I think, defensively. Is that Avalanche team coming in the Cup Finals, because they're dangerous and they're scary. But to go back to this Rangers Lightning point for Game 4 tonight, this Rangers team, they're not afraid of the Lightning. They don't care that they've just won 2 cups in a row. I think they think that they're the better team. They think they can win tonight, and they think they'll go back to the Garden for Game 5 and close this out in 5 games. And I want them. Obviously, you want your team to have that mentality. But the other thing is that it is a possible reality that it could play that way. And it's exciting. A lot of people didn't expect the Rangers to go this far, this early in this core's basically, existence in the league. So they're ahead of schedule, but so far they are living up to being ahead of schedule, which a lot of teams don't do.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Rangers were absolutely ahead of schedule. The Oilers kind of were in a way this year too, and I think McDavid had the most points in a playoff in NHL playoff history without making the final. And Drysdale was right behind him. So if the Oilers can figure out their defense and goaltending situation, they'll be right back in the thick of this next year. And the Rangers were ahead of schedule to even get this far. But they might be able to ride this out all the way to the Cup. We'll see.
While our team is in danger of losing a massive cable contract because nobody watches them. Woo! So
another one.
Anyway, well, Comcast supposedly may be dropping the Devils. So, but who can blame?
I thought that happened already.
That's right. They'll be on Apple TV exclusively next season or whatever. Amazon, one of those deals.
Be on public access.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, switch. Speaking of Colorado, in this case, there was one other topic that we wanted to do. If you guys saw the thumbnail that I handsomely,
I loved it. I think it's a great thumbnail.
If I may talk about my own skills that way. Dude, I found this image.
I think it's great.
The Walton family. By the way, credit to on this one, SB Nation, for whoever did this image for the article. Look it up on the Waltons. Credit to SB Nation on this image. But yeah, the Walton family, who owns Walmart, and now own 4 of the 5 major sports franchises in Colorado. They own the Colorado Rapids. They own the Colorado Avalanche, the Denver Broncos now, which is basically finalized or near finalized at a $4.5 billion deal, the Denver Nuggets, and also the Colorado Mammoth, which is the lacrosse team. There is talk that they may actually go for a complete sweep and own the Colorado Rockies as well. In this case, is this good for sports? Is this bad for sports? Give me some thoughts.
Well, for one thing, I'm surprised that this is able to go through because the NFL has much stricter ownership rules than other sports regarding corporate entities owning them. I know it's not actually the corporate entities owning them, which is why it is. And also to clarify, the Waltons are tied in directly with the Crankies through marriage. Stan Cranky is married to I think it's Lisa Walton. One of the Walmart heirs.
Mrs. Waltons.
Yeah. So Stan Cranky is married to a Walton. He screwed over St. Louis to move the Rams to LA and build SoFi Stadium. So then so as a result, the Jonathan Cranky, his son, is the one who runs the company. I forget the name of the holding company that owns the Nuggets, the Avalanche, and the Rapids. And I believe you were saying that it was another Walton brother that I guess would be the front person for the Broncos sale.
Yeah, the Broncos one it's going to be owned by Rob Walton in this case. Ann Walton owns the Nuggets and the Avalanche. The Mammoth and the Rapids are owned by Stan Cranky. So there's 3 of them that own 5.
Yeah, and I was going to say that other owners might try to pressure as far as like, hey, you have the same family owning 2 teams. And then I remembered that the Rooney and Mara families of the Steelers and the Giants are tied by marriage as well. So there goes that. It's
a marriage of kingdoms in medieval England.
I mean, the
New Orleans.
They own Arsenal as well.
For sport. Look, the Denver Nuggets are a competitive basketball team from a smaller market. We're talking about the Avalanche. So this is an organization, a group of folks who run a team to win. So as long as they're running teams to win, it's good for the sport. It doesn't matter. Look, Disney owns Anaheim, or they used to, at least the Mighty Ducks. Does it work out? I don't know if that worked out. But look, the Denver Nuggets, they're not messing around. They seem to do pretty good. We know why they didn't make the playoffs. Didn't have a long playoff run this year because their 2 second and third best players are injured. But they're doing, they're paying Joker, the best player in the NBA, if you count the MVP votes for 2 years in a row. And like we just talked about, Colorado's in the finals in the NHL. So like I said, they're running teams to win teams, and that's really what's good for sports. If you're not running the team to make the money.
Plus, this same groups also own Arsenal in the Premier League, who have not been doing well. And the Avalanche were bad for a long time until the last few years. The Nuggets have been fairly consistent for a bit. But there was a lot of people in Colorado unhappy with Cranky ownership with the Cranky's ownership for a long time, but that's recently turned around.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the Broncos are expected to be a great team this year. Just adding Russell Wilson. They have receivers, a defense. They have a lot of weapons. A lot of people have thought that they can now maybe dethrone the Chiefs or the Bills. No, I don't think so either. But there are a lot of people that think so.
If they played in another division, maybe, but for the fact that they play in the best division in football, I'm adding Russell Wilson. I still think they're the fourth best team in that division.
I think that the Denver Broncos will be the most disappointing team in football next year, given what the expectations.
Don't tell Mike Houston that.
What?
Don't tell Mike Houston that.
So, Mike, I do apologize.
So
I think they are going to be.
He's so excited about them.
Dude,
I think it's going to be abundantly disappointing.
Have you talked with Mike Houston about this development? Because I think getting
not the Walmart, the Walton part of it. No,
not this one. We talked like a month ago.
Right.
Just about more at the time about Russell Wilson and everything like that. And yeah, he was fired up, but his first thought was, boy, they gave up a lot for it. But more later, did he get more excited about it? This one, I probably should ask him what his thoughts are on this. See if I can have him back on. But my question to you guys on this is what happens in the future? I mean, Jeff Bezos has talked about buying teams, and God knows that guy could buy about 10 or 20. Elon Musk could probably buy one or two if he wanted to. Even the Gates could. Is this going to be the new trend where you have these mogul families or mogul conglomerates that just start buying out teams all over the globe?
It's already happened. And number one, it's been happening for years. Number two, these are such valuable properties that they're the only
Uncle Stevie.
Yeah, what I'm saying in this case, basically, will Uncle Stevie start buying up like the Islanders in the area? The Red Bulls, start buying up, teams that are in a specific location is really what I'm trying to show.
The Boston Red Sox ownership group owns multiple teams. It's a lot harder to be focused on an area because you have to have the asset go up for sale. Mm-hmm. But I think this is unique in that it's all in one area. But I don't think it's unique in terms of ownership groups or people owning multiple teams across multiple sports.
In New Orleans, what's her name owns both the Pelicans and the Saints.
Yes. I was also going to say you have the Kraft family and the Patriots and Revolution in New England.
Mm-hmm.
Dolan, doesn't he own the Rangers and the Knicks?
Yes, Dolan is
corporate
and the Garden too.
The
teams. It's the venue also.
Does he still own the
and the women's basketball team. He owns the women's basketball team too in New York.
Well, I think that's
No, Joseph Tsai, the Nets owner, bought the Liberty off of the Garden.
Okay.
So the same thing still applies, just the other basketball in New York.
So it's not new. It's probably, if we really dug deep, we'd probably find it's newer, I would imagine, because teams make so much more money now. If you have that kind of money, it becomes a valuable investment to own multiple teams. Mm-hmm. And there's probably a lot of, I would imagine, because of the different seasonalities of teams, there's probably people you have working at different levels of those things doing multiple team work.
And it also consolidates office staff.
That's what I'm
because
saying.
This is new to the NFL, but it's been happening in other sports for a long time. We could go on. We could spend the entire rest of the time rattling through teams that through ownership groups that own multiple teams in different sports. It's very common for ownership to own both the hockey and basketball team in a city. Then you have Harris Blitzer, who owns the Sixers and the Devils and Crystal Palace in the Premier League. You mentioned Benson in New Orleans. At one time, you have what's his face in Chicago, Reinsdorf, who owns the White Sox and the Bulls.
Yep.
This has been happening for a while. It's unique to the NFL, which has tried to run, from an ownership side as more of a mom and pop shop, even though it really isn't. And it's getting too big, where the fact that the only people who can afford to drop a few billion on a sports team are large corporations or bajillionaires. Where somebody like, let's say, Arthur Blank, who bought the Atlanta Falcons for only, I think, like $400 million at the time. Those owners that, yeah, right, exactly. Like you've gone from needing to be merely rich to bajillionaire, to get into this game.
Hey, the team that owns the Dodgers, they have a lot of of their management in other teams as well. You have a little bit of the Lakers, and across I think part of Chelsea. And we see players now getting into ownership while they play. We've seen LeBron with the Red Sox, and I think Liverpool. We've seen Mahomes take big ownership in, well, not big, but a ownership stake in the Royals.
Kevin Durant with I believe, a 5% stake in the Philadelphia Union, even though he has no ties to soccer or Philly. That one jumped out at me. Usually there's
the DC team where he's from.
But sometimes it's just, this is the investment opportunity, and that's why you take 5%. Soccer's growing, and then when you retire, you can go to the game, and just by you being there, even though Kevin Durant is the kind of guy who, I'd go to see Kevin Durant meet and greet. Yeah. Even though as a Philadelphia sports fan, because he's Kevin Durant, he's at that level versus I don't know, Julius Randle, whatever. Go stick with the Knicks.
Yeah. Another thing, if you go into MLS, doesn't McConaughey own Austin FC?
I believe he does.
Yeah, we see Hollywood actor, getting into the ownership thing. So I think, it's becoming a popular investment rather than rather than like a title. Being owner of a team, you're going into it as a business decision rather than a title of that sense. So it's coming all over these leagues, all over these teams. So many ownership groups and owners intermingling now. It's and there's no look. If the teams are going to be, then there's nothing to, to cry about. If they're going to be competitive and stuff like that, and obviously not every team is going to be. We see that now through all the sports. But look, if these teams and ownerships are going to make these moves and try and be competitive, then there's nothing really to say about it.
All of what we do, all of professional sports is just merely toys for billionaires, bragging rights to each other.
Not Uncle Stevie. He loves his team. Not Uncle Stevie.
I think
the trophy or the piece of film.
I don't. That's what I wonder. I think it used to be when we were young. When I was Brandon's age, it was still toys and bragging rights. But now I feel like it's become more investment and business, even for the owners, because that's why they sell 5 or 10% here. Well, I can sell 5% of the team for 50% of what I bought the team for, and I've already got half my investment back plus what I've earned. Wow, I'm doing great here. And now I have a part owner who's a marketing tool as well, and I, as a wealthy player, now have someplace to put my money that's a lot safer than a restaurant. So
Derek Jeter with the Marlins too. Same deal. No, that was kind of the new ownership model. Was have a former professional player of whatever sport be the front guy for a bunch of hedge fund bros who are putting up the actual money. Magic Johnson and Guggenheim Partners with the Dodgers is another example.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we got to
look at the Wizards. Yeah, really quick though. Look at the Wizards. What happened when they brought Jordan over to be player and part owner? That was
ticket disaster. Sales went nuts.
Like the stories of all Jerry Stackhouse and all these guys idolizing Jordan as young guys and coming over to that, just hated him. Like it completely soured their whole views of him as a person. And
well, we just watched a documentary series 2 years ago about how much about how Michael Jordan was not exactly the easiest person to work with.
Well, you don't say. You don't say. What gave
we got to wrap this up before we get in trouble.
Yes.
Yeah. JD, thank you as always. Obi Spencer, thank you. Brandon Kaye, thank you. Appreciate this. 7 o'clock tonight, Tales from the Film Set. We're breaking down movies that are at least 25 years old that never got a sequel that, hell, might actually deserve it. Thanks as always. Take care. You guys are awesome.
Beetlejuice. I'll die.